Quantum theory evolved as a new branch of theoretical physics in the early decades of the 20th century in an attempt to understand the fundamental principles of matter. Quantum comes from a Latin word meaning how much, referring to discrete units of matter and energy that are predicted and observed in quantum physics. Einstein's general relativity theory and quantum theory are the two most significant theories of the 20th century. Einstein's general relativity theory describes everything that's larger than a particle and how energy and mass behave in relation to each other, while quantum physics explains the uncertain behavior and construction of particles to the point where we enter the fabric of space-time itself. In the quantum world, it's been shown that light behaves like particles or waves depending upon the expectation of the observer. That's right. Perhaps general relativity tries to explain what the world looks like in four-dimensional space-time, while quantum physics tries to explain what space-time is. That may be why discussions of quantum physics now appear on philosophy websites, where physics and metaphysics seem to merge. How about weather? Fascinating research reports that the magnetic nature of human emotion is linked to weather patterns and barometric pressure. So think about that for a minute and how the collective consciousness of humanity could be impacting climate change and all the bizarre weather that we're having. Quantum physics has shown that the basic nature of matter changes just by our thinking about it. The human mind releases an energy radiation capable of interacting directly with matter in a manner that our science is definitely not yet sophisticated enough to describe or measure, let alone understand. What we call prayer releases an energy that emanates from human consciousness and has a direct effect on the environment, as Christina shared. Roger D. Nelson at Princeton published a paper called Wishing for Good Weather, a natural experiment in group consciousness. Laura G. Robinson's work at Franklin Pierce College also showed that human interaction with cloud formation or dissipation indicated results were significantly greater than those predicted by chance. Indigenous shamans have worked with weather through prayer for thousands of years to grow their corn and many other things. The results of quantum theory, and particularly Werner Heisenberg's work, and what he called the uncertainty principle, left scientists puzzled. Many felt that quantum theory had somehow missed the point. Albert Einstein thought so, and was an outspoken critic of quantum mechanics. His comment regarding the uncertainty principle is often quoted. The old one, by that he meant God, does not play dice. And he asked, others asked, is the moon still there if no one is looking at it? If we take Heisenberg literally, the moon is not there if anyone is not looking at it. Einstein said it was. Heisenberg said no. If reality is only that which can be observed, there is no objective movement of an electron around the nucleus, implying that reality is created by the observer. However, the possibility must be considered that there is a subatomic reality that is independent of observation, and that the electron may have an actual trajectory that cannot be measured. The moon may be there after all. And this is similar to the well-known thought experiment. If a tree falls in a forest and no one is around to hear it, does it make a sound? So far, scientists have been unable to reconcile relativity theory with quantum mechanics and still don't understand the nature of the space-time continuum. Although physicist Nassim Haramein may have figured it out, and his reports are being published. He says, quote, everything emerges and returns to a fundamental field of information that connects us all. Now let's consider prayer. Prayer is a universal human expression that exists in every culture. But what is it? I consulted several dictionaries and learned that the etymology of the word is 14th century Middle English, which in turn comes from Anglo-French, priere, and from medieval Latin, precarius, a feminine, which means obtained by treaty, by entreaty. Prayer is an attempt to communicate with a deity, a spirit, or a higher power. A prayer is a specially worded form, an act of communion, such as devotion, praise, confession, thanksgiving, or a reverent petition. Mahatma Gandhi said, quote, "Prayer is not an old woman's idle amusement. Properly understood and applied, it is the most important instrument of action." He also said, "To give pleasure to a single heart by a single act is better than 1,000 heads bowing in prayer." That's certainly worth pondering. Australian Aborigines believed in the dream time, the dreaming a great reservoir of potential that is a unity out of which all things come. Some cultures, like indigenous peoples and the ancient Egyptians, do not perceive a distinction between the sacred and the mundane. Everything in life is a sacred circle. Seen this way, ritual, ceremony, and prayer keep people mindful in the experience of life. In Western culture, we have separated and compartmentalized our lives. Most people, even if they attend a church, temple, or synagogue, allow an hour or so a week to their spiritual lives. So I wondered, is prayer a response to this sense of separation from our true state of oneness with the essential unity of existence? I think that earlier cultures and indigenous peoples had it right. In many ways, the Christian God is like the Wizard of Oz, this frightening being behind a curtain, a projection of our fears, longings, and needs onto a frightening screen. This is a fearsome being who might punish us if we don't behave. In that way, our relationship with this sort of deity is like a cruel parent. What about the healing power of prayer? Christina told us a great story today about her father. Health and religion have always been intertwined, most obviously through prayer on behalf of those who are ill. Does intercessory prayer actually help them? For thousands of years, some people have believed so. Brandeis University research in the Journal of Religion in 2009 showed that over the last 4 decades, medical studies of intercessory prayer, the prayer of strangers at a distance, especially say more about the scientists conducting the studies than about the power of prayer to heal. Like many things in life, we seem to get what we expect. Increasingly, scientists are studying the power of prayer. Most research looks at how people who are sick are affected by their own spiritual beliefs and practices. In general, these studies suggest that people who are religious or spiritual seem to heal faster and more effectively than the non-devout. After talking with physicians about the power of prayer to heal patients, Brandeis sociologist Wendy Cage, who was an expert on the intersection of religion and medicine in contemporary society, set out to research medical studies of intercessory prayer, going back to the 1960s, which is the first year studies of this kind were published in English language medical journals. She evaluated 18 published studies on intercessory prayer that were conducted between 1965 and 2010. Quote, "Collectively, the studies provide a fascinating snapshot of changing American religious demographics, evolving ideas about the relationship between religion and medical science, and the development of the clinical trial as the gold standard of medical research," she said. She also said, "I don't know why physicians and scientists conducted these studies, but personal religious beliefs appear to have played a role, along with curiosity. The earliest studies undertaken in the 60s were based exclusively on Protestant prayers, while more recent studies, reflecting growing social awareness of other religions, combine Christian, Jewish, Buddhist, and other prayers. The researchers leading the studies applied clinical scientific methodologies to the study of these prayers, but Cage found that even that approach was fraught with problems. For example, researchers asked whether the people not being prayed for by the intercessors were truly a control group, since their family members were also probably praying for them. Researchers also wondered what the right dosage of prayer might be, and how the prayers should be offered, and what to do about non-Christian intercessors. With double-blind clinical trials, scientists tried their best to study something that may be beyond their best tools, said Cage, and reflects more about them and their assumptions than about whether or not prayer works. Reflecting a recent shift toward delegitimizing studies of intercessory prayer, recent commentators to the medical literature concluded, "We do not need science to validate our spiritual beliefs, as we would never use faith to validate scientific data." Dr. Larry Dossey has written numerous books on his research of the power of prayer and healing, and Dr. Elizabeth Targ, who sadly died at the age of 40, also did really important work. Targ studied the therapeutic effects of prayer on AIDS and cancer patients. The presence of a compassionate person reciting some soothing prayers apparently helped some patients, if nothing else but a placebo effect. Measuring that effect might be useful, but Targ went a step further. She investigated what she called distance healing, in which those who offered the prayers were far removed from the patients, who themselves were not even aware that the prayers were being said on their behalf. She reported striking results after selecting practicing healers from a number of traditions, Christian, Buddhist, Jewish, and Indian shamans. She supplied them with only the first name, blood counts, and photographs of 20 patients with advanced AIDS. For an hour a day, over a 10-week period, the healers concentrated their thoughts on the pictures of these patients, but not on those of a control group or of 20 other AIDS patients. According to Targ, prayed-for patients had fewer and less severe new illnesses, fewer doctor visits, fewer hospitalizations, and were generally in better moods than those in the control group. She believed the technique would even work on non-human species. She described an experiment performed by another group in which remote healing was used to shrink tumors in mice. Amazingly, she reported, the greater the distance between healer and mouse, the greater the effect. The connection, she suggested, could be actuated through the agency of God, however we understood that, consciousness, love, electrons, or some combination. So there's a wonderful story, and I'm not going to get all these details right because it's told differently, but it's an amazing story. So we now have equipment, scientists now have equipment that can measure a single photon. So there was a lab in Germany who wanted to see if that could be influenced by consciousness, because we know that the heart literally radiates 10 to 20 photons, biophotons, light with every heartbeat. So they wanted to see if that could be altered through intention. So they recruited a man who was an internationally known meditation teacher who identifies as Sufi, brought him to the lab in Germany, which had been completely set up. So they put him in there, and for the first 3 days, nothing he did or tried made a difference. But on the 4th day, the family that he was staying with, when they woke up, the little boy was ill. So without saying anything to anyone, when he went into the lab, he focused on sending light, love, and healing to the little boy. The machine went from measuring 20 photons to 200. They thought the machine had broken. And so what was learned is prayer to be really effective, or intention, requires a target. It's much more effective if we actually are praying for someone with intention and sending light and love. And this would benefit us as well, right? Where our hearts would literally be radiating more light into the world. It's a powerful thing to know about, and I heard it through some article of the study, through some article about the Dalai Lama. A few scientists have taken a further step, trying to learn if strangers can be helped by praying for them without their knowledge. A controversial study of cardiac patients was conducted at St. Luke's Hospital in Kansas City, Missouri, and they concluded that this type of prayer, known again as intercessory prayer, may indeed make a difference. Harris, the head of the study, said, prayer may be an effective adjunct to standard medical care. Harris and his team examined the health outcome of nearly 1,000 newly admitted heart patients at St. Luke's. The patients, who all had serious cardiac conditions, were randomly assigned to two groups. Half received daily prayer for 4 weeks from 5 volunteers who believed in God and the healing power of prayer. The other half received no prayer in conjunction with the study. The volunteers were all Christians. The participants were not told that they were in a study. The people praying were given only the first names of patients and never visited the hospital. They were instructed to pray for the patients daily for, quote, a speedy recovery with no complications. Using a lengthy list of events that could happen to cardiac patients, such as chest pains, pneumonia, infection, and death, Harris concluded that those receiving prayers fared at least 11% better than the group who didn't receive prayer, a number that's considered to be statistically significant. Harris remarked on his study to see if he could replicate a similar earlier study conducted by San Francisco General Hospital. That study, one of the only published studies of its kind, also found that prayer benefited people, but by a different measure. The patients were able to go home from the hospital sooner. He says our state of mind bolsters the evidence, and it argues for another intelligence to have to redirect this very vague information. So does our own state of mind matter? What about brainwaves? What about our own consciousness? How do we factor into the equation? As part of the central nervous system, our brains emit what science calls brainwaves. These are synchronized electrical impulses that oscillate in wave patterns from the neurons in our brain and are detected through EEGs, electroencephalogy. I don't think I said that right. Brainwaves are associated with different levels of awareness, ranging from hyper-alertness to deep and dreamless sleep. Science has identified 5 brainwaves that operate simultaneously, although one brainwave is usually dominant, depending on our activity or state. They are synchronized electrical pulses that are produced when neurons in the brain communicate with each other. Different brainwaves are produced by thoughts, emotions, our behavior, and differ according to our mood and activity. Slower brainwaves are dominant when we feel tired, and brainwaves of higher frequency indicate alertness. The waves are measured in hertz, which is a unit of the International System of Units, defined as 1 cycle per second, named after the German physicist Heinrich Rudolf Hertz, the first person to provide conclusive proof of the existence of electromagnetic waves. Although all the brainwaves, as I said, are active all the time, one frequency is dominant. So I'm going to tell you what they are before I tell you why I think that's important. So the beta brainwave, 12 to 20 hertz, are dominant in normal waking consciousness and are heightened during times of stress. When beta waves are dominant, the focus of the mind is external. Beta waves indicate focused concentration and are present during conversations and decision-making where mental alertness is important. Beta waves are believed to increase logical thinking. Alpha, 7.5 hertz to 14. Alpha waves appear primary in relaxation, but while we still remain awake. This level is thought to generate creativity and to help in problem solving. Alpha waves are also associated with meditation and increase in the posterior part of the brain. Alpha waves calm the nervous system, lower blood pressure and heart rate, and reduce the production of stress hormones. Why we should meditate. Theta waves relate to deep relaxation and deeper meditative states, hypnosis, trance, and light sleep, and are associated with dreaming. In the theta state, the senses are withdrawn from the external world and the focus is inward. These waves are believed to enhance positive mental states. Delta waves have the slowest frequency and are primary in deep and dreamless sleep. Delta waves increase the production of two anti-aging hormones, DHEA and melatonin. Delta waves facilitate healing as this deep state allows the body to release the toxins that have built up during the day. And finally, gamma, the fastest and the least recognized or understood, but are thought to be associated with intense concentration, sudden insight, and high levels of awareness and information processing. Gamma waves decrease anxiety and increase positive conditions, and they've shown to be very prevalent in Tibetan monks and nuns. So brain waves are also seen to be associated with different parts of the brain. For example, alpha waves are strongest at the back in the occipital lobe that handles vision. The optimal level for visualization is in alpha, which many people use in guided journeys and visualizations and so forth. Theta is believed to be the gateway to the subconscious mind. Some researchers believe that gamma waves equate to the highest level of cognitive function and are like the Buddhist idea of being awake. Most people experience this briefly as a eureka moment of insight and euphoria, but Buddhist monks and nuns may be in this state for long periods of time during their meditation. This may also be the state where a startling experience of synchronicity occurs. The brain achieves a greater coherence during meditation. The greater the brain's coherence, the greater the intelligence, creativity, and learning ability become more of the brain's potential is used. This growth of coherence results from gaining a state of what's called restful alertness. During transcendental meditation practices, these practitioners report that attention is magnified and there is a sense of connecting with what physicists now call the unified field. Well, so that was a lot, right? A lot to, hopefully we recorded it. And so, as the poet Rumi has said, sit, be still. Patience is the key to joy. If the light is in your heart, you will find your way home. And I thought I would conclude by sharing a few prayers that I found from different traditions all over the world and through time. So I'd invite you to take a couple of deep breaths. Close your eyes if you want to, not required. But just settle into that alpha state. Feel your brain waves slow. Feel yourself relax a little bit. So the first one is called Fire of the Spirit from Hildegard of Bingen. Fire of the Spirit, life of the creatures, spiral of sanctity, bond of all natures, glow of clarity, lights of clarity, taste of sweetness to the fallen. Be with us and hear us, composer of all things. Joy in the glory, strong honor. Be with us and hear us. The next is a Hindu prayer from the Bengali poet Rabindranath Tagore. Let me not pray to be sheltered from dangers, but to be fearless in facing them. Let me not beg for the stilling of my pain, but for the heart to conquer it. Let me not look for allies in life's battlefield, but to my own strength. Let me not cave in anxious fear to be saved, but hope for the patience to win my freedom. Grant that I may not be a coward, feeling your mercy in my success alone, but let me find the grasp of your hand in my failure. The next is a Pueblo Indian prayer. Hold on to what is good, even if it is a handful of dirt. Hold on to what you believe, even if it's a tree that stands by itself. Hold on to what you must do, even if it is a long way from here. Hold on to your life, even if it's easier to let go. Hold on to my hand, even if I've gone away from you. And the next maybe doesn't fit into the context, but I liked it. It's a Wiccan prayer for the dying. Time has passed. The wheel has turned. It is time for me to move on. I will walk hand in hand with the ancient ones and with my ancestors who came before me. Great Mother, welcome me back into your womb. I come to you and know that I am blessed, for my life has been one I am proud of. As I enter your world, wrap me in your loving arms and welcome me. Lord of death, I wait for you to take me. I come to you willingly with eyes wide open as my last moment approaches on the horizon. May I look upon you without fear, without pain, and knowing that those who walked before me await me on the other side. O ancient ones, give me strength to take these final steps and allow me to do so with peace and dignity. Let my family mourn my passing, but not my loss, and let them heal, knowing I will see them again. Time has passed, and the wheel has turned. It is time for me to move on. And I'll end where we began, with a prayer to Bridget. Bridget of the earth, bless me with prosperity. Bless those I love with prosperity. Bless all the world. Bridget of the waters, bless me with health. Bless those I love with health. Bless all the world. Bridget of the sun, bless me with beauty. Bless those I love with beauty. Bless all the world. Amen. Aho. So it is.